Jim Kwik is the founder of Kwik Learning and has spent the last 25 years helping others to unleash their super brains. He went from being known as the boy with the broken brain after a childhood head injury left him struggling in school to becoming an expert in learning strategies and one of the highest paid speakers in the world. Need motivation?
Watch a top 10 with Belief Nation.
Top 10, I got a top 10. Got my motivation high for my top 10. Gotta learn from the wise women and men all my life. Like na 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 na. For my top 10, top 10, na 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 na. This one's for my top 10.
Hey, it's Evan Carmichael, and I make these videos because you are probably the most ambitious person that you know, but you also know that you're capable of more, and you get that push by surrounding yourself with the best. So today, let's learn from one of the best, Jim Kwik, and my take on his top 10 rules of success. Enjoy. Okay, let's kick it off with rule number 1. Infuse emotions into your learning process.
All learning is state dependent. All learning is state dependent. This is the thing. Information combined with emotion becomes a long-term memory. We know that.
Okay.
And we know this because ultimately the expert's not always the person on the podcast or on stage. You are your own expert. Mm-hmm. So genius leaves clues. Okay. Genius leaves clues all the time. So when somebody's exceptional in some area, there's a method behind the magic, including for your own self. Okay. So you don't remember all names, but you certainly don't forget all names. Now, go and deconstruct that, decode that. Usually the names you remember are names you're motivated to. Okay. You're somebody that is attracted to somebody that could be good for their business, right? So there's the emotion there. So emotion tied to information becomes a long-term memory. Because here's the thing, is there like a song or fragrance or food that could take you back to when you were a kid?
Absolutely.
Because information tied with that emotion becomes a long-term memory. But here's the thing, back in school, what was the primary emotion we felt? Boredom, right? Half the room is bored, the other half is confused. But on a scale of 0 to 10, what's boredom? 0. Information times emotion. If the emotion is 0, what's anything times 0?
0.
And you wonder why you forgot the presidents, the capitals, the periodic table, all the things we learned in school because the emotion level was very weak. Wow. Right? That's why entertainment is so powerful, because education, maybe empowerment is here. Entertainment is way up here because of that emotion. But when you can infuse emotion into the learning process.
Rule number 2, start with I am.
I'm a huge believer in identity driving behaviors. I have a hard time explaining to people though how to adopt a new identity. How have you done it in your own life? I think that's the best place to start.
I mean, my identity, obviously this is a work in progress, right? I would say that I would start with they call it the 2 smallest words in the English language, but they're the 2 most powerful words in the English language. It's I am, right? I am, because whatever you put after that determines your destination or your destiny, right? And I think your identity is who you believe you are. And I feel like when we're talking about playing to the edge of our limits and really playing there and living in that place where we're stretching, I do believe, and I get inspired every time I see your Insta story. You're like, it's like 4:30 and you're working out, you're doing your work, but that's who you are, right? You don't have to fight it because you can't imagine yourself not doing that. And that's the level of that I think is what's most important. So I would think about going through an exercise, and I've done this with friends. I've had them sit, or in groups, we do these conferences and such, and I have people pair up with someone they don't know, and what they're gonna do is they're gonna do an exercise, I am, and they're gonna talk about, they're literally gonna fill in the blanks for 3 minutes until I call time.
Wow.
So you have to go and you could do this right now. Like if you were to fill in I am blank, like I would say, I am a student, I am a teacher, I am a son, I am all this. But eventually I'll get to a point where I don't know what else to say. And that's what the real interesting answers come out of, right? Because it's a great way for networking and knowing somebody else. But it also shows us this really big tapestry of our life to the point that we've gone to right now, where I relate to these aspects of ourselves. And I think it's a nice exercise when we talk about self-awareness being a superpower, really knowing who we think we are. Because if we don't believe that we're a public speaker or we're a great parent or we're a great learner or a genius, then we'll never be able to reach our full potential, because that will always be the ceiling that we bump up against.
Rule number 3, train your mind.
If you were to write your name first and last on a piece of paper, actually you could do it right now, first and last, and everyone encourages you to do this. Or imagine you're writing your name first and last on a piece of paper. And then when you're done, I want you to switch hands. And in your opposite hand, right below it, write your first and last name with your opposite
I don't even know if
hand.
it'd take me 10 minutes.
And so,
So
while people
bad.
are doing it, you'll notice when you're doing it with the opposite hand, as we're doing it, that's actually pretty good. That if I was to ask you which one was easier, first or second, and you would say the first was easier. Which one is more comfortable, first or last?
The first one?
The first one. So not only was it faster, it was easier, and then which one was higher quality? Let's check that out.
The
Hopefully the first one's higher quality also
Yes.
as well. And so here's the thing. That means the second time it took longer. The second time it also was not as comfortable. And the second time also the quality wasn't quite as good.
Correct.
And here's the thing, when I'm saying it's how you learn, some people are trying to learn something with the opposite hand. So it takes longer, it feels weird, and the quality is not quite as good as opposed to if you're using your dominant hand.
So how do we know how to learn with our dominant hand as opposed to the opposite hand?
Yeah, and that's a metaphor for how we like to take in information. Some people like to learn by reading. Some people, they just cannot get through a book, though. They have to listen to that audio or that podcast. Other people
Or watch
need to-
someone lecturing it or talking about it.
Exactly. And so we all have different styles, and it's not right or wrong. Now, we can actually improve our ability to read. We actually can improve our ability to listen and apply. So if there are areas where we feel weak, this book is a guidebook to be able to level up those areas so you can be more of a whole brain learner also as well. But really when it comes to accelerated learning, it's not, again, how smart you are, it's how are you smart. And that honors us and it takes the judgment out. Sometimes in school, it's like the top 10% get A's, another 10% get B's, and then 80% were like you and I. It's like
Right.
it's like we're failing school as opposed to the way school maybe is failing us, because school teaches you what to learn, what to focus on, what to think, what to remember, but not how to learn and how to think.
Well, it teaches you
and
how to
focus.
think and learn in one way. essentially, right?
Exactly. And when I talk about in the book, I talk about the 4 supervillains that are holding you back in your work, in your schooling, in your life, is driven by technology. But one of them is digital deduction, where we're depending on technology to tell us what to think. We're not even using the children right now. They're finding that their reasoning abilities, their ability to analyze, critical thinking is not as sharp as where it should be because of technology, because technology is doing the thinking for us. And our mind, I'm gonna say this repeatedly, is like a muscle. It's use it or lose it. And just like when you have your personal trainer to make your muscles stronger, more energized, more flexible, more pliable, you want your mental muscles to be stronger, more energized, more pliable, more flexible.
Of course.
And so many people refer to me as a brain coach, because what I do is I train your brain, because I think we're in the millennium of the mind. I mean, it's really about mental fitness, our ability to adapt, our ability to think, our ability to solve problems, and this really is everything. When people see me wearing brain shirts all the time or pointing to my brain, the reason why I do that is because what you see, you take care of. You see your hair, you take care of your hair. You see your skin, you take care of your skin. You see your clothing, you take care of your clothing.
You don't see your brain.
Exactly. And that controls everything. And so when I point to the brain or honor with their shirt, it's just like people have their emotions on their sleeve. I have my brain on my chest because I want to put it forefront to remind people to love their brain, to care for their brain.
Yeah.
Rule number 4, set up your environment.
I think if I'm modeling genius and genius leaves clues, I'm thinking about, okay, where are they and when are they doing these things? So certain people are early birds, some people are night owls. So I could teach people, like I teach people how to read 1 book a week. I really think leaders are readers, that in order to stay competitive in today's day and age, if somebody has decades of experience and they put it into a book and you can sit down and read that in a few days, download decades into days, I mean, I'm preaching to the choir for everyone who's watching, but that's a superpower, right? That's a huge advantage. And so I'm thinking about, but some people, when I'm telling them to practice, and I get these results in about 4 or 5 weeks, where it's permanent, where they can read 300% faster with the same or better comprehension. Essentially read something in 20 minutes that normally takes normal people an hour.
Right.
But the reason why, but you have to practice. But some people will practice at inopportune times of the day and they won't get the same results. So part of it is the self-awareness, knowing your, what they call your chronotype, when's the optimal time to do this. Depending on your body type, there's certain times of the day it's better to work out. There's better times of the day to be able to make love. There are better times of the day to be able to read, to check email, to ask for a raise. So I would think about like if geniuses find their element, their sweet spot, and they set up their routines and their rituals throughout the day to be able to align with their time when they're most productive, right? If they're not have a lot of energy in the morning, working out is probably not as good as doing it some other time. So the when and the where, and setting up your environment for success, because all your triggers are there that allow them. So I think geniuses set themselves up. So for example, they have their laptop, but they only use their laptop for work, and it's anchored, that's part of their environment, it's anchored to get them into flow states to be able to write or be productive. They don't use their laptop to watch binge on Netflix. Right? They have an iPad that they use when they do that, because that's the state that they want to anchor for that. And they don't use that iPad to do work. Setting up your environment like your bedroom. Like we just did a whole episode on sleep hacks and how to optimize your sleep, because that's a big, personal challenge for me for many years, because I had suffered from sleep apnea. It's a breathing disorder. I stopped breathing 200 times a night for at least 10 seconds, which is the equivalent of somebody coming in and just choking and suffocating you 200 times a night. So I would actually, the reason why I'm so adamant about productivity and learning hacks is because for the longest time, for literally 5 years straight, and you know this, I've slept about 90 minutes to 2 hours a night total. Oof. And you know how you feel when you get like one bad night's of sleep, and how like where your focus is, your energy level, and I get these horrible migraines, and it's forced me to double down in my practices, in terms of like I have a limited amount of time. I have to focus on the things that really matter, resources and stuff. But anyway, going back to this, like my bedroom is sacred space, right? I don't do work in there. I keep it because that's my trigger to be able to rest, go into parasympathetic space. I set up my environment, so I have my blackout curtains, I have my grounding pad, so it's to optimize my restful sleep that I do get. So environment, so Genius Leaves Clues, they set up genius environments for themselves.
Also, if you want to learn to have more self-love, check out my 254 series. It's free. The link to join is in the description below.
Your mind is always eavesdropping on your self-talk, right? And you have to be careful what you say to yourself, because it's this unconscious command.
Rule number 5, transcend.
Your brain controls everything.
Yeah.
Right? And when people see me on stage, they'll see me have 100 people stand up and I'll memorize all their names as they introduce themselves, or 100 words or 100 numbers that they give me forwards and backwards.
I've seen this man have 100 people give him 2 numbers out of sequence, and he'll repeat back 100 people's multiple numbers like this.
And here's the thing, I always tell people I don't do this to impress you, I do this to express to you what's really possible. Because the truth is, every single person that's listening and watching this could do that and a lot more.
Oh my gosh.
The thing is, we weren't taught. If anything, we were taught a lie, that somehow our capabilities, our potential, our memory, for instance, our learning abilities, our intelligence is somehow fixed, like our shoe size. Wow. And it's absolutely not true. We've discovered more about the human brain in the past 20 years than the previous 2,000 years combined. And what we found is we've grossly underestimated our own potential, our own capabilities. And that's the thing, it's just because we weren't taught. And I really think the nature of the work that you do, that I do, that our community is really backing, is about transcending. It's about ending the trance. Wow. Transcend, end the trance, ending this massive gnosis in media and marketing that's telling us that we're broken, that we need to be fixed, that we're not enough. And I feel like that is what holds us back.
Rule number 6, take cold showers.
Today's challenge is to take a cold shower. And you're like, oh, I was loving this guy until he said cold shower. I hate cold showers. Now why? Let me talk about why, because I don't like cold. Period. I don't like cold baths, cold showers, cold environments, but cold could be your teacher. Many of you listened to great avail to with great response to our episode with Wim Hof. I met Wim over 6 years ago. Wim Hof is the Iceman. If you haven't listened to that episode, please, where he talks about cold is my teacher, where he climbs the Himalayas in his underwear and he swam underneath the Arctic. Amazing, amazing man, but it talks about the power of cold. And if you listen to also my episode on my morning routine, one of the things I do every morning is I take a cold shower or an ice bath here. So there are a number of reasons why you want to take a cold shower. And starting with number 1, it lowers inflammation. It lowers inflammation. So one of the challenges to your brain, which also is part of your body, are high inflammation levels. And if you listen to our morning routine, we do things like have turmeric tea and such, which sounds really good right after you take a cold shower, by the way. Cold reduces inflammation. It's like you bang your knee on a coffee table. What do? You put ice on it to reduce swelling and inflammation, but we also have inflammation in our body. So cold is very powerful with that. Again, listen to the episode we did with Wim Hof, the Iceman. He's an expert at that because he lives his talk. He actually does it. The second reason why you want to take a cold shower in the morning, I don't go through specifics on how long and such. The second reason is because it's like a nervous system reset. For me, it's better than coffee. When I go into the cold, I feel like after when I come out of it, it's like I'm brand new. And you can attest to this. If you've ever gone into a cold lake before, or just like when you go out in the cold, you come in and you feel refreshed, it helps to reset your nervous system. The third reason why you do it though, is because you want to get yourself to do difficult things. Especially as part of your morning routine, you get yourself to do difficult things. And that's what's important here. Part of the reason we're doing this Kwik Brain Challenge is we know that challenge leads to real change. When you challenge yourself through struggle, your struggle by overcoming that struggle becomes a strength, or if you will, a superpower. And so what are you doing? You're testing your ability to be able to deal with what's uncomfortable. And as we talk about, if you're just doing the easy things, put things off, procrastinate, then life is difficult. If you do the easy things, life becomes difficult. But if you do the difficult things, you get yourself to do difficult things, you build your grit muscles, if you will, then it's gonna show up in a life that becomes easier. You know what I mean? Like when you're doing difficult things, you have that difficult conversation with somebody, you get yourself to work out, you get all the benefits of having an easier life, because life is not necessarily easier, it's just you are better. And so when you're putting yourself in uncomfortable situations, like a cold shower, a cold bath, some of you do cryotherapy where you're in a, negative 230 degrees for 2.5 minutes. Obviously consult with your healthcare practitioner. You're putting yourself in a safe way in uncomfortable situations. So you're building that ability, that fitness, if you will, to be able to show up and speak in public if you have a fear of public speaking, or to have that meeting, or to ask for that sale if you're an entrepreneur, or to do the thing as a parent that you need to do that you've been putting off. So again, you're building your grit. So again, reasons why you want to take a cold shower. Number one, lowers inflammation. Number two, it's like a big nervous system reset, which is great for your brain. And the third reason, you're training yourself first thing in the morning to do difficult things. So there's a science to momentum, and you get yourself to do difficult things, and then when you get to work doing that difficult thing that you've been putting off, because I do believe that the treasure you seek is found. It's hidden in the tasks you are avoiding. So as you're getting yourself in the habit of creating new habits, because that's what we're doing with this challenge, you're gonna do it today or tomorrow, the next time you take a shower. Now, what specifically are you doing? You wanna build your way up to it. I'm not saying take a 2-minute cold shower because it's cold, it's uncomfortable. So baby steps, right? Every pro was once an amateur. And so every expert was once a beginner. So you go in and you just do 10 seconds. Maybe you do 10 seconds on, 10 seconds off. And also their health benefits, going from cold to hot. If you've gone to some of the spas, they have a cold plunge and then like a heated jacuzzi. So it increases your vascularity. And so it's building that pump, if you will. So go maybe 10 seconds cold, 10 seconds hot, warmer, 10 seconds cold, 10 seconds hot. And you can build yourself. I do my box breathing, my alpha breathing, my fire breathing, my Wim Hof breathing, and I push myself in a healthy, safe way.
Rule number 7, have a not to do list.
I always tell people that self-love and self-care is not selfish. A lot of people, they're there for their friends and their family and their clients and everybody else, but they're not refilling their cup. So I think that we have to be grow givers, meaning we grow so we have more to give to other people, so we have more impact with other individuals. So the behaviors are reading each day and putting together your to-do list, and I think having your not to-do list is so important. Having been sleep deprived for so many years, I think a lot of people, I'm super sensitized to it, but I think one of the success rituals people should have is just going through and keeping a consistent not to-do list. And I think the most successful genius level individuals, one of the clues that they leave is their not to-do list is bigger than their to-do list, right? They don't check their phone in the morning. They don't take in, everything is hell yes or it's hell no, right? That's their filter system. They don't, they say no to good so they can say yes to great.
Rule number 8, ask more questions.
How many of you have been the opposite? You read something, you get to the end of the page, and then you forgot what you just read. Look around. And you go back and you reread it, and you still don't know what you just read. Right? And that's a big problem, right? Because you're wasting your most valuable asset, which is your time. And the reason why all the speakers here give 100% is because we know your time is valuable. Like, I want to make this session so valuable, when you leave, you're like, I would have came and paid just for this one talk. You know what I mean? Because I know what it's like when I first learned these skills. I traveled around the world. I bought every audio program, audio cassette. No, I'm dating myself, but it's like, but I bought all these programs because that's the thing that's gonna help me be able to grow the most. And so on the right side, the 3 questions I obsess about to get the most out of my reading or listening to a podcast or anything else, I ask myself these 3 questions. I ask myself, how can I use this? Now, it's so basic, but I like to make the things that are gonna give you the highest return, I wanna make them as simple as possible so you do it. How can I use this? And this is your creativity. You're listening to me as I speak here and all the other speakers, and you're asking, how can I use this? Because you have a dominant question you ask all the time, and it's been imprinted on you since you were a child, right? And so for me, growing up as the boy with the broken brain, I would be very introverted, very shy, and my superpower back then was being invisible, right? Because I didn't want to be seen or heard because I didn't feel like I was enough. And that's just what my reality was. But my imagination would kick in all the time because I would watch people and observe them and ask, why is that person so smart? Why do I have to work 3 times harder to do worse than this person, right? And the question I would ask all the time was, how can I make this better? Because I was obsessed. And the key to reading comprehension is asking more questions. If you read a page in a book, get to the end and not get anything out of it, it's because you're not asking questions, because questions are the answer. You write that on the left side. Questions are the answer because ask and you shall receive. And so that's all thinking is. When you really break down functionally what thought and thinking is, when you're in a corner thinking to yourself, you're asking questions and then you're answering them. And you probably are like, is that true? You notice you had to ask a question to be able to think about that, right? And so on the right side, I'm thinking about questions like, how can I use this? And this is like, oh, there's one way I could use it, another way, another way. The second question I obsess about, and I would capture it on the right side to be able to, when you're taking notes throughout today and the rest of your life, on the right side I would say, why must I use this? Because here's the thing, the biggest lie in the personal development industry is that knowledge is power. It is. It's just you feel like you got points because you signed up for a seminar or a webinar, you bought a book and it sits on your shelf, and it becomes shelf help instead of self-help because it just sits there, right? But it doesn't become, the truth is, what people don't tell you is all the podcasts, coaching, conferences, online programs, none of it works unless you work. Right? Is that fair to say? Like you can't read a book on doing like push-ups and get benefit from that. It just doesn't work, right? So you have to do the work. So I'm asking myself, how can I use this? And I'm coming up with all these ideas. That's the creativity part. And then I'm asking, why must I use this? Because if it's not a must, you're not gonna do it because you have plenty of other things to do. Is that fair? Because there's a success formula you capture on the left side of your page, head, heart, hands. You could think about things in your mind, set goals in your head and affirmations, KPIs, your objectives, but if you're not acting with your hands and you're procrastinating, raise your hand if you ever procrastinated before. Right, all of us. If there's a gap between your head and your hands, check in with the second H, which is your heart, right? The emotion. We do things emotionally. We are emotional creatures. We're not logical, we're biological. Dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins, we're this chemical soup, and so we want to be able to activate that. So head, heart, hands, another way of putting it are our eyes. Information, that's good, great, but sometimes you can listen to a podcast, it's a lot of information, but there's no inspiration to use it, fair? But sometimes you can listen to a speaker or learn something and it's inspiring, but you don't know what to do, right? Is that fair? So you have information, you have inspiration, and then you have implementation, where you're doing it. And I feel like when you get all 3 I's together, you have the most powerful I, which is integration. That's my goal for all of you, is that when you read something, you listen to something, you learn something, it becomes part of who you are. It's integrated. Here, here, and here. And then you have an alignment, and how it performs is, it looks like magic to people. When somebody is aligned and they're in their element, it looks like it's effortless. These flow states, it's powerful. It's 3 parts to it that I focus on. How many of you have ever been in a zone? And that's how it is when I'm reading. Like, people think that just because our program's called Kwik Brain and Kwik Learning and Kwik Reading, it's frantic fast. It's not at all. It's just, there's a piece to it. It's like somebody who's fit and has strategies. If they have to climb a mountain, it looks like it's effortless because they've just done the work and they have strategy and they have tools to be able to do so. And somebody who maybe doesn't have those resources, it's more effort. Is that fair? So actually learning how to do these things, it's easier. Like, when I read a book, I still read a book a day. It's just part of my practice. It's part of my mental hygiene. And I feel like it's the number one exercise, because reading is to your mind like exercise is to your body. And some of you are already doing this, so I'm preaching to you, so I'm gonna show you how to do it better. But those of you who aren't on the other spectrum reading at all, the average person reads like 2 books a year. Now, if you're reading like more than that, that means somebody's reading a lot less, right? On the other side. But it's the best exercise for your brain. People ask me all the time, how do I keep my brain young and how do I keep it energetic? And as I grow older, reading. But the problem is a lot of people don't indulge in it because they're not good at it. And I wouldn't be playing a lot of golf if I was horrible at it all the time. But in psychology, they have something called the confidence-competence loop. That the more competent you get at something, the more confident you get at it. And then the confidence will make you do it more, and you get more confidence, and then it cycles through in positive momentum, right? And you have examples of that in your own life. So what I'm asking about here, the second part, is the inspiration is, why must I use this? And you know what a question I ask a lot of is like, who's counting on me to win today? You know what I mean? First, because some of you, and I bring this up because some of you really will do more for other people than you will for yourself. So knowing that about yourself, self-awareness is a superpower, then tap into that. You don't have to change it, tap into it. Who's counting on me to like be at my best? And then you're more likely to do it. And the reason I know this is because when I was driven so much, it was really my family who I wanted to make proud. Like, we all have our reasons, right? And one of my favorite books, I'm probably give you 12 of them, in this conversation, is Start With Why. It's a must-read book by Simon Sinek. And you want to start with your why because reasons reap results. Reasons reap results. And even remembering people's names, if you don't have a reason to remember their name, you don't. Like, how many of you have trouble remembering people's names? Raise your hand. See, this is the thing, you don't remember everyone's name, but you sure as heck don't forget everyone's name either, right? So there's always, genius leaves clues. You can write that down. Genius leaves clues. There's always a method behind the magic. And I bet you the names you remember are people that you have some kind of intention. You're attracted to that person. They could be good for your business, right? There's some kind of motivation that's there. So find your motivation in your reading, because if you're not motivated, you're not gonna read very well.
Rule number 9, take notes properly.
There's a learning curve, but there's also a forgetting curve. Science is saying that within 2 days, just 48 hours of listening to a podcast, reading a book, going to a conference, getting a coaching, 80% of it, up to 80% is lost.
Incredible.
And that's, as somebody who's investing time, energy, treasure into something, to lose all that, and so you want to be able to hold that on. Okay. And so one of the ways of doing it is by taking notes. And we did a whole episode on proper note taking, and really one that's more brain friendly. Okay. Most people, then what they found is the worst way of taking notes actually is verbatim.
Which is the way I take notes.
Yeah, verbatim,
I used to.
full transcription. And they study this, at universities because they test people. They have people take word for word. And one of the reasons why is because there's just so much information. Okay. Right? You have 18 pages of word for word. You don't even know what's most important. But they found the best way of actually taking notes were more on keywords and relevancy. So for example, one of the ways of taking notes that I recommend is taking a piece of paper and putting a line straight down the page. Okay. And on the left side, what I'm doing is I'm capturing information. Okay. Capturing. So we could talk about how to remember names and how to read faster and how to learn skills faster, how to change your habits. That would be on the left-hand column. You're capturing information. Okay. But on the right side, instead of capturing, you're creating. What does that mean? It means that you're creating and you're building on this. You're putting your impression. So essentially on the left side, you're taking notes, but on the right side, you're making notes. And there's a clear distinction, right, between just capturing information and actually create the creative process.
Why does that matter?
It matters because if you're, first of all, for focus. A lot of people, when they're listening to something, their mind will go somewhere else. They'll get distracted. So here, instead of it going somewhere else, it goes on the right side of the page, which is, let's say, left side, right brain. Left brain, right brain. Left brain is more logical and words and language and linear. But on the right side is your imagination, it's your creativity. So your creativity could go there. The other thing is it forces you to ask questions.
And rule number 10, the last one before a very special bonus clip, is have a good morning routine.
So I'm going to walk you through my morning routine. The first thing I do when I wake up in the morning is I have a process to remember my dreams. Now you're like, Jim, why do you want to remember your dreams? The reason why is often as you spend your day learning and working to solve problems in your work, in your life and everything else, when you sleep, your mind doesn't stop. Your unconscious mind is still working on those problems and you come up with incredible insights and solution. The challenge is in the morning, most people don't remember their dreams. So we teach a process on how to do that. The second thing I do after I wake up is I get out of bed and I make my bed. You're like, Jim, why is that good for your brain? 2 reasons. Number one, clean environment is important for you. Like, when you clean off your desktop, you clean up your office, your bedroom, you have a clearer mind. The second reason why is I want to start my day with success, because how you do anything is how you do everything. So you start with excellence. Take 2 minutes, make your bed, and it's really great because when you come home at the end of the day, you come back full circle back to success. The third thing I do is I drink a lot of water. Your brain is mostly water, 80% water, and a lot of people are dehydrated. You use so much water, and it's so important for your brain to be hydrated. The challenge is you lose a lot of water when you're sleeping, so I super hydrate first thing in the morning. Then what do? I brush my teeth. You're like, Jim, why do you brush your teeth? How's that good for your brain? What you do is you brush your teeth with your opposite hand. It's been shown that by using your opposite hand to eat or to brush your teeth, as your body moves, your brain grooves. As you brush your teeth with your opposite hand, it actually creates more neural connections inside your brain. So the next thing I do is I do a deep breathing exercise. The other thing besides hydration that's good for your brain is oxygen. A lot of people get tired and they have brain fog, and what do they do with their mental fatigue? And I would say the number one thing is get oxygen in your body. And here's the thing, your brain is only 2% of your body weight on average, but it consumes 20% of the nutrients and the oxygen. So it's so important to do deep breathing exercises. We talk about that in our programs also as well. What's the next thing I do in my morning routine? I make myself some tea, and I make what I call a brain tea. It has gotu kola, ginkgo biloba, it has lion's mane, it has some essential fatty acids that are there, really good ingredients that boost my focus and my memory. Now, as I'm drinking the tea, what am I doing? I'm actually journaling, because if you want to boost your brain power, it's important to take notes. And I do a whole process where I teach you the best ways of taking notes and making notes to be able to plan out your day and also to be able to write the things that you're most grateful for. So I go through this gratitude process in my journal because I feel like your brain really thrives on gratitude. Because if you can't appreciate the things that you already have, you're not going to be given the things that you really want. So why do I focus on gratitude first thing in the morning? Well, I have my vision board and then my goals, everything that I want, but I also have a gratitude board, the things that I'm most grateful for in my life. And if you want to feel instant gratitude, just count all the things in your life that you have that money can't buy. Gratitude is also good for your brain. There was a cover story on the cover of Time magazine on these super nuns who are living 80, 90, and above. And I want to find where's their longevity coming from? Half of it had to do with their gratitude, emotional faith. The other half had to do with they were lifelong learners. So those two things combined are very, very powerful. After that, I'm drinking my tea, I'm writing in my journal, because a lot of geniuses write in journals, right? Leonardo da Vinci, Einstein, Marie Curie, all these journals, and they want to do these studies, say, are geniuses writing in journals because they're geniuses, or is it the opposite? It's because they're writing in journals that they become these incredible geniuses of their field. When I'm done drinking my brain tea and writing my journal, the next thing I do is I do some just morning exercises. This is not my exercises for the day, but 3 or 4 minutes of high intensity workout to kind of get your heartbeat going. Because here's the thing, whatever's good for your heart is usually good for your head. Because when I'm getting my heartbeat going, what's happening is I'm getting more blood flow to my brain and more oxygen, and that's very, very important. So what do I do next? I make my brain power smoothie. And you're like, Jim, what's a brain power smoothie? There's certain
certain foods that are really great for your brain. And I teach people how to memorize these foods. And what we do is I just put them all in a blender. So certain foods like blueberries, right? I call them brain berries. There are things like avocado, very good for the brain also as well. Obviously hydration, we're gonna talk about all those ingredients in another video. So as I'm drinking my brain power smoothie, what am I doing? I'm reading, right? 20, 30 minutes a day of dedicated reading, because leaders are readers. And you're like, Jim, I can't read a book a week, because the average person reads only about 1 or 2 books a year. But the CEO reads about 4 to 6 books a month, right? So you want to get to about a book a week. So remember, first you make your habits, and then your habits make you. Design the first hour a day to be brain friendly, and you'll win the rest of the day.
Now I've got a special bonus clip from Jim on how to change your patterns that I think you're gonna enjoy. But before that, it's time for the question of the day. I wanna know, what do you need to put on your not to do list? Let me know, put it down in the comments below. And if you made it this far in the video, you're still here watching, give me a hashtag believe down in the comments below. I wanna celebrate you. We don't just watch videos here, we do something about it. So give me that believe in the comments below too.
Think about, when you're listening to this, what are the labels that we put on ourselves? It's like we're born with a blank slate, right? But through experience, through expectations of other people, through our environment, we learned that we are limited. Yeah. And the good news is we can unlearn it. And that's the point of the book. But because I was in the broken state, I would always ask myself, why am I broken? Why am I the stupid one? And I started getting answers of why I'm so stupid, right? Every time I did badly on a test, I would be like, oh, because I have the broken brain. Right? If I was in sports, I'd be like, oh, because I'm the broken one. And that became my self-talk. Adults have to be very careful with their external words because they become a child's internal words. But later I started to get so frustrated, and I started getting curious. And when you're curious, you start to ask different questions. I was like, why is that person why are they so smart? And how come I'm studying 3 times harder and getting less grades than them, right? And I started getting answers. My primary question my dominant question ended up being like, how do I make this better?
If you want to see the top 10 I did on Brendan Burchard, check out the video right there next to me. I think you'll enjoy it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.
There is a difference between passion and obsession. And high performers have obsession about the topic, right? They are obsessed about the topic in which they're trying to